The self-appointed judge of iRacing Ovals is back to judge your crashes once again. You guys had a really good reception to the last video, so as always, remember if you want to see your crash or your incident on a future episode, make sure to join the Discord and send the video or a replay file there. Alright, let's get to the first one. So the first one here was sent by Nick in the Discord. He asked if he was at fault. He is the blue number 11 car. This is the first lap of the race apparently. Okay, it looks like we're ARCA at Michigan. We're at Michigan. Okay, so very first lap, and he just gets kind of run over there. Okay, so he claimed that they said that he lifted too much for the corner and he caused the wreck. Now, what I'm seeing here, so let's first see what they claim. So they say that he lifted too early. And so you can kind of see that the outside guy does dive a little bit further than he did, but at the same time, look at all the space that the second place had behind him going to the corner. I think that a full car length, most of a car length, I think that's enough time for him to check up regardless of how slow he is getting into the corner. Yeah, he had about 2.5 seconds there to just react in a way that wasn't just running into his bumper. And so even though I think that he definitely did underdrive that entry a little bit for Michigan on the first lap, I think ultimately the wreck is on the 4. But it's not just about the wreck being on the 4, because we've said in the previous one too, it's about learning from this and what can you do differently. And you can say, oh, well, he should have just drove it in deeper. It's the first lap of Michigan. But how does a person know to dive it in deeper on the first lap? So this is a pretty big teaching point. If you are thinking that you might start on the pole in a race, I highly recommend that you practice your race start, because the way that you go into the first corner, just like a road race, just like pretty much any other race you'll do, that first lap, turn 1, is going to drive differently than turn 1 of any other lap. So you can see here, I think this just shows that Nick might not have practiced how to enter turn 1 on the first corner, because maybe he didn't know that you can mostly full throttle it even on the bottom lane. So if you're going out to qualify, if you put down a good lap, don't just go straight into the garage. I would come back around if you have time and practice what it's like to do a first lap, because that is going to drive completely differently. So even though the wreck is on the 4, hopefully those are some things that you can take from that. Anyways, final verdict, not guilty, but there are some things to work on. Oh boy, we're back on Reddit. I love Reddit. 9 car approaching the final lap. Should I have let the 11 re-enter? Okay, so he's the 9, and then we're thinking about the 11 now. Okay, so the number 9's coming along. There's a big wreck there, and the 11 comes back across the track, and he gets into him. Okay, that's a lot to unpack there. Let's see. Quality's pretty bad, but if you can see in the distance, this car is rolling back across the track, and the red car makes the move to avoid him. I don't think that's the 11's fault. I really don't. And I'll say why. We're going to talk in the context of a rookie street stock race. This is a rookie street stock race. People do not have their race crap fully formed yet. And when you have that context and you see a car rolling back across the track, I would get off the gas here. I would say, okay, what's going on here? Let's figure out what we're doing, and then we'll navigate around it somehow. Like, I understand that he sees the gap and he thinks I can full throttle the gap, but what does he expect the red car to do when he sees a car come across his nose? Like, what is the red car gonna do? He's got 2 options. He runs straight into him. I guess he could get on the brakes and stop. Maybe that's what he was expecting him to do. Or he could try to avoid him and come back up across the track. I'll tell you what, in rookies, people are not aware of their relative at the same time that they're going around other cars. I don't think that it's super reasonable to expect the red car to not just prioritize getting around that car that's rolling back across the track in front of him. I would put that on the 9, honestly. I think you see danger in rookie street stocks. The number one thing that you can do to preserve everyone's race is to back off. I don't think that there was much gain to be had by full throttling through that. But what do I know? Let's see what Reddit says. They're always right. There's so much more going on here. I agree with that. You shouldn't have let him pass, as he should have been more aware about what was around him. It's rookie street stocks. Here's rookie street stocks, and you got a guy coming back across the track over his nose. I think if anything, the 9 should have been more aware of what was going on. But I don't know. You probably should have used the brake pedal a lot sooner when you saw the mayhem ahead of you. Yes, I agree with that. That is basically all I'm saying. 11 should have looked where they were going. 9 should have braked earlier. 11 should have looked where they were going. Yeah, I mean, they're both at fault. I mean, I guess they're both at fault, but the 11 did not make the first mistake. You know who made the first mistake? This car up here backing across the track in front of the red car. That's the first mistake. Yeah, you're wide open throttle with a hazard directly ahead. What do you expect? Exactly. 2 upvotes. I had 3 upvotes. Even though the game doesn't show, it's very obviously a yellow flag situation right there. So yeah, I think a few guys are missing the context of what Rookie Street Stocks is and what it isn't, and how things are avoided there easily. I think that full throttling into a situation where the track might be blocked is like the worst thing that you can do. At least give yourself a bit of time, and if you have a bit of foresight, see how things shake out there. But yeah, with that, I would say 75% on the 9. So 75% guilty, and disagreeing with most of Reddit makes me a little more confident in that. All right, next video comes from Brandon, and this is another race in Michigan. It seems like a hotbed for incidents. This time we're in the Xfinity car. And let's see, it looks like he's the car on the bottom here. Let's see what happens. Oh, and they just come together and he's gone. Okay, so whose fault is this? Okay. So what I like to look at first, and I actually brought my little trusty pen here, I like to compare these 2 cars to these 2 cars. And what we can do there is we can see how much room is being given by the 2 cars that race clean to each other and how that differs between these guys. So let's take that a bit further and we'll see where they end up. So, okay, so this is the point where they make contact. So let's take a look at 2 things. So you can see that this car here is fairly in line with this car, but then this car and this car looks like he came up a lot more than he did here. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, but let's think about how much room we are expecting the top car to give here. So he was on the wall, and this might be what he saw out of his window, was that, okay, this car is on the wall, so I can slide up pretty close, not give him too much room because he's already made the exit and he's on the wall. But you can see here, at the point of the exit of the corner, he came off the wall some, and he came up the track about a lane, and that just couldn't work with how much room that they were planning to give each other. But so it's a little bit of both, but I would actually put that more on the 24 here, and I believe that is Brandon. And I think that because if you look at the cars in front, this car really is on the same line as this car. So this to me is telling me that this is a fairly reasonable distance to keep off the wall. Could he be higher? Yeah, he could definitely be higher, and it would be ideal if he was higher, but it's a difference between what the ideal is and what you should expect. Like, nobody is a pro here. Nobody's gonna be keeping it pixels, inches from the wall on each exit. So giving yourself only that lane and a quarter of room off the corner is a little risky in my opinion, because things like this can happen. The only thing I would say is on this car here, and it looks like he gets a little loose, but once he's up by the wall, he really should be staying right on the wall. I think he either got loose or he started following the car in front of him. One of those 2 things happened, and that's how they got together. But like, if he was this far down compared to this car, then they wouldn't have hit each other. So I would say that it's a racing incident, but if we're going to assign blame, I would put the majority of the blame on the bottom car here. So final verdict, unfortunately, guilty. I feel a bit bad you get screwed and you're also guilty, but hopefully that's something that we can learn from and move on and keep racing. All right, and this last one is going to be from Basic Ollie's stream. So this is from when he won his first attempt at the Daytona 500. Congrats to him on that one. But there's some drama brewing because he was involved in an incident, and the person that he was involved with it with is part of the Arca Farm Discord server. So he went ahead and sent this replay and said, am I at fault or is he at fault? So let's take a look at this. Okay.
Full aggression.
20 laps to go, it looks like. Holding the yellow pretty well, Ollie is. And then some movement. Oh, And then just contact. Oh, everyone dies behind him too.
Keep going.
All right, so let's take a closer look at that one. That's an interesting one. So my first impression on this one is that Ollie's right on the yellow, which is where you need to be. It doesn't look like he has a car on his outside, but they're coming. The outside line's coming. Whereas the first two cars are really leaving a lot more room to the yellow. This is probably half a lane just about at Daytona that Paul might be leaving here. So, and then he kind of crosses over and then comes back up. So my opinion on this one is that I think Ollie pretty much did what he could do there, in the sense that he's holding a very, very steady line. And I think that the line of the car in front of him is just a little bit too unpredictable. Now, what Ollie could have done to prevent the wreck is lay off a little earlier. I think that it's pretty common, not common knowledge, but an oval racer's intuition on these maybe older tires coming off of these corners that these next gens could get loose. So I think this is a really rough amount of space that he's giving him off the corner. You can see the telemetry here, sorry with the YouTube red bar, but he doesn't really get off that much ever. I think I'm gonna call this a racing incident. I don't think Ollie's 100% for fault at this. I think what he could have done was recognize that the situation might get sketchy off the corner just because it's easy to get loose, and leaving this little amount of room off the corner is a little rough. That's asking a decent amount on Paul. But if Paul was on the yellow line this whole corner, none of this would have happened, in my opinion. I don't think that he gets loose coming off the corner unless he's trying to pin the car to the yellow after being a lane up. And then when he comes back across the nose, that's already too late. Ollie was too close to the bumper to have any sort of reaction that would prevent that contact by him coming up. I think that there's a couple things that Paul could have done to avoid, and I think there's a couple things that Ollie could have done to avoid the wreck. I think Paul could have kept it pinned to the yellow throughout the corner a lot more. And then I think this moment right here, I don't think he needs to overcorrect here. I understand that it's getting late in the race, but when he's coming back to the right here, I think he should be expecting the nose to already be there, because where else would it be? That's just not enough time to react. I think that you can see here, he gets loose and he's coming down the track right here. I think what I see in higher levels of Daytona, higher levels of super speedway racing, this happens to everyone. It happens to the best of us. But the difference is that when it happens to a high level driver, a lot of the times they will just say, okay, I got loose, it's over, and keep it on the apron, let the pack by, get back in the draft and work from there. You know, I know there's only 20 laps left. If there was maybe 5 left, I would kind of understand, like, okay, we need to keep our track position no matter what. But 20 laps to go, still a decent amount of time. There probably isn't that many cars left in the Daytona 500 at this point. So I think that coming back up the track here, really trying to not bail there even after getting loose, I think is a bit greedy on his end. So at the end of the day, I think this is a racing incident, and I don't think anybody's guilty, so to speak. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of my judgments in the comments below. I will be willing to listen to some form of democracy, but just know I'm the one that chooses the punishments. And this week, the punishment is 20 years hard labor, aka having to run ARCA at dirt tracks.